Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's Castle Report. This is Friday, the 20th day of February in the year of our Lord 2026. I will be talking today about the continuing saga of Jeffrey Epstein and what that saga means for the relationship between the global ruling elite and the people. Yes, folks, we're faced with a moral dilemma today, and that dilemma is what to do when we find out that the ruling elite of the West, not just America, but the West, has completely abandoned the moral bedrock upon which the whole system is based. Western civilization, also known as Christian civilization, is based on a system of moral principles, and if those principles are adhered to by everyone, the system works, and we can pass it on to our offspring. Now that entire belief system has been turned upside down and destroyed, and that is of great concern to me. The elite, and I call them that for lack of a better word, but hopefully you know what I mean by that term. The elite know that their power is also based on moral authority, which they don't even believe exists. Their goal is to keep us from learning of their complete moral depravity, because that might mean the end of their privileged protective lives. The elites understand that once their complete amorality is understood by the masses, the West, especially America, loses its facade of moral superiority that has always anchored our lives. Their fear is that if they have no moral authority, and we know it, why should we have any? When that cynicism flows downhill and infects the general population, there is nothing left to hold us together. The sad and destructive part of all this is that we know for certain it is not just a few very sick individuals as we have been led to believe, but it goes much deeper than that. No, this pedophilia, to use a polite word, is a systematic, organized, ritualized practice. These networks could only exist when backed by deep institutional protection. Political, police, judicial, and media all cover for and protect them on a global scale. These recent revelations have led people to believe that the entire system is rigged against them. They see their lives as akin to a sporting event in which the refs play for the other side and the goalposts are constantly moved. They believe their country and the West have been stolen by a few super rich individuals who get further and further ahead because they have gamed the system, while the rest of us fall further and further behind. This all paints the picture of a rupture between the ruling elite and the people. People have seen the level of horror that the files have revealed so far, and they know that is only about half of it. They know in their hearts that elections will no longer solve their problems if they ever would have. The level of distrust and anger among the people is and should be bipartisan. I'm not the only one to see this picture, because the ruling elite understand it as I do. They're a little afraid right now. Their reaction is foot-dragging, redactions, and lies about the files. The other day, Pam Bondi said that we have seen the final release. There won't be any more, so we are moving on from this. Well, Pam, no, we're not moving on from this, no matter how much you would like to. If you are ordered to redact the files and keep them hidden from, then honor, if there is any left, requires you to resign. I also heard the DOJ say that these files were released unredacted. If they were released unredacted, it might cause a collapse of the entire system. Well, folks, that's a chance I'm willing to take to clean the system, because allowing it to continue is simply cannot happen. The administration seems to be taking the approach of trying to say, okay, folks, we've been transparent. There's nothing else to see here, so just move on. This is just a few sick individuals, but we know who they are, so that's it. Humpty Dumpty, in other words, as in the old nursery rhyme. I don't think it will work any better than it did hundreds of years ago. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, the rhyme goes. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty back together again. No, folks, this system is broken. Everybody knows it. The distance between the ruling elite and the people grows wider each day. In recent decades, The economy has been changed, or rigged if you prefer, toward a debt-based, financialized economy at the expense of the American dream. This has happened across the West as the system, after the fall of the Soviet Union, believed the thousands of years of nation states was at an end. From 1991 on, the world would be a globalized trading bloc based on commerce rather than war and defense. It didn't work, and all it seemed to accomplish was to destroy the poor and hollow out the middle class, who were the backbone of the American dream. Just base everything on debt and worry about the interest later. But huge cracks appeared in that system. Offshoring of manufacturing left nations dependent for critical resources such as antibiotics in the complete control of their adversaries. Now, after seeing the total depravity in the files, we realize who our leaders really are. How can we be really sure of anything anymore? How can we be sure of anything? What is so fantastic is, or was, the belief that it just can't be believed. It's so depraved it would never have happened. Would you believe me if I told you that Epstein was murdered by the very people on whose behalf the blackmail was committed? What if I told you that he is still alive, as a lot of evidence points to? Jimmy Dore, on his podcast the other day, put forward a lot of evidence that he is still alive, evidence such as a guard saying a transport van took him away on the day they normally didn't move prisoners, a day before he supposedly died. What about the director of the FBI and his top assistant telling Congress that he committed suicide when there is a lot of video evidence that he did not? It's hard to believe that people who would rape a 6-year-old child and worse would commit murder. You believe that? It's easy to murder if you've done such a thing, to cover it, and to allow their sadistic and depraved circle to continue. We have some important names worth mentioning right now, such as Les Wexner, founder of Victoria's Secret, Bath and Body Works, Abercrombie and Fitch, and La Senza, among others. He's also suspected of connections with Mossad. He gifted Epstein a $70 million mansion in Manhattan, a 7,000-plus acre ranch in New Mexico, among other things. He's now considered an unredacted co-conspirator, but he said he was conned. He just didn't know. Richard Branson, Virgin Group. Catchy name, huh? Virgin Group, which has Virgin Records, Virgin Airlines, trains, other things. He once emailed Epstein and said, "Yes, I'll be there. I'll be there if you bring your harem." Too many other horrific things to mention, but a lot, and I mean hundreds of emails with code words such as beef jerky, pizza, grape soda, Tinkerbell, which is the name Les Staley, former CEO of Barclays Group, used for one of his victims. Oh, and I forgot, Snow White, another big one. U.S. prosecutors are looking at Staley for rape and causing great bodily harm. Andrew Windsor, former prince, was arrested yesterday, so perhaps those who are facing prison will talk about the rest. We'll see if the prosecutors are really interested. Finally, folks, we know some of who they are. We know some of what they have done. They know that we know, but they also believe they're protected in their satanic ritual attacks on our children. From Hollywood to boardrooms to the great capitals of the West, they seem to be corrupt, demonic, satanic in ways we just couldn't comprehend until now. At least that's the way I see it. Until next time, folks, this is Darrell Castle. Thanks for listening.